From moderator, thank you. Good afternoon. It's a great pleasure to be here with you. Welcome to one more panel discussion. We're going to talk about financial citizenship as a fundamental right. It's always important to remember that access to quality financial services is an essential pillar for social inclusion, economic development, and it's necessary to recognize financial independence as a fundamental right, and all this must lead to equitable access to financial services. How can banks, fintechs, and regulatory authorities working together to make the access to the financial system more democratic? And how is financial education being effective as a tool for financial inclusion? How can we include the underserved population into the financial industry? But in order to move this conversation forward, I would like to invite Luiz Mansur, head of the promotion of financial citizenship of the Central Bank of Brazil. I would like to invite Rogério Sabe, Superintendent of Impact, Business and Sustainability of Caixa Econômica Federal, Rafaela Vitória, head economist of Interbank, Tadeu Silva, president of ACREF, and Nairce Menezes, head professor of the Cardoso Chair at INSPAR and associate professor of the School of Business and Administration of the University of São Paulo.
Bom, obrigada pelo tempo de vocês.
So thank you for your time, your participation. When we talk about financial citizenship, we have to remember it starts with access to the financial system, but it's only sustainable when there is financial education so that it generates value to each family in our society. Then I ask to start the conversation about your perspective. What does it mean to take that to the Brazilian context, and what are the main obstacles to get that? And I ask Luiz Mansur to start by analyzing our scenario of financial education
Boa tarde a todos e a todas.
and our financial point of view. So I'd like to greet my colleagues in this journey, Rafaela, Tadeu,
Gostei
Naércio,
bastante.
Maria Eugênia. Well, I liked your introduction a lot when you said that financial citizenship starts with access to the financial system, to the financial products and services, but it's only sustainable when there is financial education, which suggests value to the family and the citizen. Well, what you define is what we expect on financial education, financial inclusion with quality that goes further beyond than giving access to products and services. We hope this process generates what we call financial welfare to the individual, the family, and to society. So financial welfare is what we expect from a full financial citizenship, and for that we need 4 pillars.
Esses 4 pilares.
And the 4 pillars are regulation, supervision, protection to the consumer, and obviously financial education that is efficient. And we need more and more this financial education to be customized, to be carried out to comply with the needs of the individual and their financial moment in their financial lives. In terms of financial education, the central bank based their efforts in the tripod that we call PLA-POCRE. That in Portuguese means PLA for planning, the use of financial resources, PO for poupar, saving, and using the resources with awareness. And what we worked on that for a while, and what changed was the digitalization of the system with technology transformation, all that changing deeply the way people interact with the financial system and how we interact with our money.
Nós temos 130 milhões.
We currently have 130 million Brazilians with digital accounts. Cell phones have overcome the physical points of work and agencies as the main transaction channel, without even mentioning PIX, that PIX today is the most used payment method for the population. We use it much more than credit and debit cards, and it all brings a lot of opportunities for growth and convenience to the user, improves competition, it speeds up the financial inclusion, but also brings challenges like frauds and coups that are classic in this digital world. And financial education and digital education are mandatory here. I think it's very difficult to separate financial and digital education. They have to be together all the time. So improving the credit offer in digital channels may expose the citizens to debts and risks, mainly in the most vulnerable population with a less financial education or less digital literacy. That's why it's important for the credit offers, mainly in the digital channels, are with quality and attention, and that they are understood and managed by the population the proper way. So what we also see currently is that the digital transformations are not limited only to the financial system and the payment methods. Many come from outside and generate impacts in the financial lives of citizens. What we see now with the spread of the betting platforms, online betting, is that they are generating a huge debate due to this potential of financial loss to the citizen and the risk of excessive debt, mainly again among the most vulnerable population that believe this kind of debt is a kind of investment. We hear that a lot. So this scenario demands significant efforts in terms of digital security and structural financial education and digital education, besides the need of always having a robust regulation and efficient supervision and protection to the consumer available so that they comply with their duties and are entitled to their rights with a financial citizenship. The central bank has specific actions in this sense. We monitor the risk of debt of the population. We follow the phenomena, and we have indicators with which we can monitor the debt of the population. We have programs of financial education in public schools in the country. I believe we'll talk about that. And now we have a resolution to oblige the financial institutions to offer financial education actions in the client journey, in their relation with the client. This is also something new, an innovation that is started last year. So I believe this is the proper place for us to discuss that. We have the opportunity of analyzing the scenario and discussing the best way of working the financial health in this new context of digitalization.
Muito obrigada, Mansur. Sempre
okay, thank you very much, Mansur. It's always nice to hear the Central Bank in this agenda. Congratulations for the initiative. Now I'll pass on the floor to you. I'd like you to make your comments. Okay, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here in this event. Thank you for the invitation. And it's a very special session for us to talk about financial citizenship and financial education. And I like to start by talking about the construction of citizenship. I mean, for financial citizenship, we need citizens in Brazil. And to have citizens with all the rights, we have to invest since child development and basic schooling, higher education, to prepare them for the world, and even to give this financial education. There is a recent study showing that 2/3 of the Brazilian youth has no basic learning at school. That is, they have no minimum conditions of going to the labor work and having their career and financial success. So 2/3 of the youth that leave school now, they don't know basic mathematics, they cannot read well, they have difficulties with social, emotional skills like persistence, awareness, fast return. So we are failing in Brazil in the development of the basic skills to the youth. And it starts in the early childhood. Many children grow in their first 6 years of age that are mandatory to their lives, and science shows that in many areas of knowledge. And we see many kids growing in vulnerability. So they are in poverty, although we have very successful income transfer programs, and we have people in inadequate households with lacking basic sanitation that is mandatory for development. So when the kids go to school, they many times lost the ability of concentrating and learning and developing at school. So what happens is that it's more and more difficult for them to learn. They fail and they finish high school without the basic knowledge and the basic learnings. So with that, I'd like to emphasize the importance of the basic development, something that comes before financial citizenship and financial inclusion. We are failing in our duty of raising kids with this future development and opportunities for the future to grow in all senses. And this failure in the social emotional skills can explain the metrics that were mentioned here. So it's the perspective of fast gain and having a fast reward and being unable to delay awards or return or concentrating or investing in human capital, as we say. It all reflects what we call the flaw in the social emotional skills. So I would like to start by emphasizing this fact that is something basic. Before financial education and inclusion, we are failing in the development and the formal education of our youth to the world.
Obrigada, Naércio. É sempre importante.
Thank you, Naércio. It's always important to make this link between financial citizenship and citizen and social development. Now I'll invite Rafaela for the discussion to contribute on this scenario of financial inclusion. Well, thank you. I have quite a constructive view of our financial sector with evolution and how it happened with in the last 10 years with tokenization and the digital bank accounts. We participated with the central bank in the development of the digital bank accounts. We had the first process of opening the digital accounts in Brazil. Back then it didn't even exist, and we would say, well, we want to have an app for a bank to open a bank account without physical documents. Is it possible? And there was nothing to forbid. There was no regulation, and with the central bank we started testing everything. And obviously the flexibilization of the system with the IPs helped us to evolve, and since then we saw a fast involvement of the bankarization process. It's an important step for the financial citizenship. Basically every individual, almost all individuals, because we are close to 100% of individuals having a digital bank account. And the vast majority of people have 5 bank accounts in Brazil, which brought some big benefits, mainly to the low-income population that didn't have opportunities to have bank accounts in the past, and especially women that had no access to bank accounts because they needed the approval of their husband to pay something or sign a check. I remember that my mother didn't have a bank account, so the husband would allow her to sign a check in a joint account. So this is very important because we also reach the youth as well. And in Inter we have the kids accounts that was launched a few years ago, and we can see kids in elementary school and in high school having their first bank accounts, learning how to make payments, and learning to invest or to manage their allowance without the physical money on their hands. So this is something very important. This is a more constructive view. But I agree, we still have a lot to evolve, and financial education is giving access to people to have digital bank accounts or credit products in a digital way as investments, but we also have an important work ahead of us, that is to teach kids in both aspects, like using credit wisely, because it's very easy to have a digital credit today, but it's much more complex to manage that, mainly for people with low income. So it's important to give access, but it's also important to teach so that the use of credit is wise. And on the other hand, we have the savings accounts, the investment. In Brazil, we have a big problem of low rates of savings, and we see that on people's daily lives. I mean, they have difficulties in the sense. So it's a problem not only of income, but accessing the savings. So we have the basic savings account being used a lot. So when we check the investors, we see the savings account as the most popular product, and savings account is one of the worst products that we have today on the market. I mean, nothing against it, but we know it is important, like for real estate, at least from the point of view of financial planning for families, but it's not the best product. So we'll evolve in this sense, and Galípolo was saying that the real estate sector needs to search for other sources, and from the point of view of families, we have to check other ways to invest, and we have financial education work in terms of credit and investment that is huge to improve the financial planning of families in Brazil. We could progress, but we still have a lot to do. Okay, thank you. Now today I'd like you to talk about CREF's position in the sense. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's very nice to be here in this panel to talk about something so important to the market. Now, talking about financial citizenship. When we talk about financial citizenship, I'd like to mention a point that is like a dream of the market that we may have, and our reality today is quite different from what we may have in Brazil. And we are talking about dignity, we are talking about inclusion, so we are talking about social evolution. And we know that the reality today of the Brazilian citizen is quite different from everything we say. But I guess the topic of financial citizenship and talking a little bit.
CREF é a Associação Nacional das Instituições de Crédito, Financiamento e Investimento. Então a CREF ela é carinhosamente conhecida no mercado como a Casa do Crédito. E se a gente hoje somar a carteira de crédito das associadas da CREF,
consider every associate in CREF, we have 50% of the credit market, so it's quite expressive. And
com relação a essa questão da cidadania. É uma carteira aí montada já há muitos anos por bancos tradicionais.
Of banks that we have over the year, of traditional banks, small and medium banks, financial institutions in many regions in Brazil. So in our associates, we have basically the base of the pyramid talking to us, and we see how many obstacles we have regarding financial citizenship. So Naércio was talking about the training of the citizen, and one of the challenges to have financial education is
o povo brasileiro tem déficit grande de educação.
A lot of education. We know that language and mathematics is something that is quite poor. So imagine teaching finances to these students. It's a huge challenge. Also, we have millions of Brazilians living in very distant and isolated areas. Although we have technology, they have no conditions. We say that they are bancarized, but they are under bancarized, let's say, because they were digitalized due to the social benefits, but they don't have effective activity, just like us in the big centers, in terms of having a digital account.
So these are some of the challenges that we have to deal with. In addition, public policies that should involve the private sector and involving the financial sector. So there is a lot of hard work that has to be done in this respect. CREF works with the low income segment of the population, and we take part in decisions. We work together with the regulatory authorities. We participate in public hearings run by the central bank, always reflecting on the issue of financial education. But the challenges in this respect are still enormous. But we just have to deal with the situation. Rogério, last but not least, tell us what Caixa's view of all of this is. Thank you for this opportunity. I was hearing to what my panel members were saying, and first of all, I would like to reinforce what was said in relation to citizenship. So we're talking about financial citizenship, but we have to reinforce in a country like Brazil, a demand further aspects of citizenship are out there before we seek to achieve the goals of financial citizenship. 60% of the population does not have access to basic sanitation. Another high percentage of the population does not have access to drinking water. So, you know, there's a lot of issues that have to be dealt with prior to financial citizenship. Lettering, digital lettering, illiteracy as well. Literacy and finance is all about. So if the population invests in savings account, because that is the most accessible form of investment for this low income segment of the population. So we, at Caixa, we structured our citizenship front. We have a digital citizenship front that we work on at Caixa, but we based our work on Martin Assay. So in addition to financial citizenship, we have to think of political freedom, financial and economic autonomy, protection, access to and access to transparency, and all of this was structured. Our 2030 agenda at Caixa was structured on the basis of these 5 items, and obviously we are a bank, and our biggest focus is financial independence. But this financial independence, this freedom, has to make it possible for citizens to have access to what is most powerful service of the bank. But we want to develop our citizens' highest potentials, and at Caixa, the financial front is the most important one. So but considering the different personas that exist in the Brazilian environment, so let's think of the population that live in the Amazon jungle, then vulnerable populations such as the indigenous peoples and other unrepresented segments of society. So all of these populations have to be taken into consideration, but all of this has to be taken into account before we evolve further into financial citizenship.
Eu queria seguir com uma pergunta.
Now, a question to Masud and Nairsu. Would like to hear about what you have to say about the correlation between formal education and financial education, and impact on the
Sobre o programa Aprender.
on the exertion of citizenship. You have a program at the central bank that involves schools, teachers, and education networks. This is a project run by Central Bank, plants the seed in young people to become vectors of financial education in their communities and into their families. Yes, this program, for those of you who are not familiar with, this is the Central Bank program of financial education that takes financial education to public schools. These courses are free, and this is a program that is based on an online platform. And it also includes training for teachers. First, we provide financial education to teachers, and then this is drilled down to the classroom. And this is a program that reaches out to elementary school students, and the idea is to integrate financial education as part of the basic academic curriculum at elementary schools. So in addition to students having courses on geography, history, math, and Portuguese, they also have financial education programs, and this is totally aligned with the objectives of the OEDC. So the attitude is that financial education should start as early as possible in the lives of students. So we use technology to reach this objective. All the material available is available online, and this is very important given that Brazil is such a huge country. So all of this allows us to reach out to very remote regions would otherwise be inaccessible. So this program, the idea of this program is to plant a seed for the future. So we train this child to use the money to save wisely, to use credit responsibly. So when this child becomes an adult, he'll become a citizen able to make sounder and healthier financial decisions, and this will lead to a more peaceful financial situation. But what we see from the testimonials from the students that take part in this program, these students become vectors of this financial education. They transmit this financial education to their family members. They talk about budget planning with their parents. They convey this message to their neighbors and to their communities. And all of this, so as I said, we train the teachers, and this has a multiplying effect that goes way beyond the students, the children. For the Central Bank, this is not only an educational program, but we see this as a social program as well, because it is a government entity that can transform the lives of people in general. So, and this is something very fruitful. And now we're moving forward. Today, this program is focused on elementary school children at public schools. It's recently opened up this program to elementary students from private schools. We will also make this program available for middle school students. Our idea is to strengthen this program by providing content provided by the Brazilian Forum of Financial Education. And the Central Bank is part of this forum. And so the idea is that this program become a program run by the federal government. We want to include in this program tax education, social security education, and now we also developed, starting this year, the more specific contents for more vulnerable population. You mentioned, for example, the indigenous communities and other underrepresented segments of the population. So we are going to cater this program to this population as well. So Nécio already answered the first part of my question, but what I would like to hear from you is a vision of how can public policies be improved so that financial inclusion become more efficient and more robust and more widely spread around our country. This is a great question. Thank you. Well, obviously, we know that there's a very strong correlation between school education and financial education. Why is this so? Because in Brazil, we have the experience on which the students find it very difficult to learn mathematics. For example, if you look at the data, Brazil has an educational assessment program that is very highly developed. We can follow the performance of students for many years, their performance in math and Portuguese language, and mathematics and Portuguese language has been stagnated for so many years. But this is a real situation, unfortunately. But students basically, especially those who are studying in public schools, they do not learn mathematics, basically. They come to middle school with a lot of difficulties in terms of math. This has already been analyzed by a number of economists based on real data. So when we conduct an evaluation of impact, this is talking about the correlation. There are impact evaluations that are conducted by academics of financial education programs. These programs are very well designed, so there's randomized control. There's a group that gets this education, a control group that does not get this financial education. And this is defined by a lottery type system, so there's no bias. So there was a study conducted in Brasilia involving 15,000 students. There's another study of the same kind in Goiás. These studies show that financial education has a very small impact on the lives of these young people in terms of changing their habits, in terms of their financial planning. And so it's a huge difficulty because they're two different programs. Sometimes they might have a small impact on the knowledge, on financial knowledge, but it's very difficult to change any practices, any related practices. And this is very bad because we're placing our resources into programs that are not reaching out to the other end. I'm not saying that all the programs are unsuccessful in this respect. I'm saying that the programs that were evaluated, unfortunately, have this characteristic. They do not drill down to the other end. So the question is, why can we not change the lives of these young people? Then you have to look at the school system as a whole. Let's think of the teachers. Who is going to teach financial education? It's the teachers themselves. Now, teachers have a lot of difficult of teaching reading skills and mathematics. Why? Because very often the teachers themselves did not have access to quality education when they were students. Many of these teachers are the first generation that that got a high school education. When these students go to college, the pedagogical courses are full of theories, a lot of ideological discussions, a lot of discussions on the philosophers, but very little practical experiences. They have these students have very little hands-on experience, and as a result, when they enter the classroom as teachers, they find it difficult to deal with any specific situations that come up, especially with students who very often did not have the opportunity of having adequate childhood development to be able to concentrate, to wait, to listen to the teacher. So basic elements that we see in public schools. When we talk about the principal of the school, many of them are former teachers that did not take any management courses. They do not know how to run a school. It's very difficult to run a school. You have problems with the parents of the students. You have problems with students that fight each other. You have structural problems such as the leaking roof or inadequate classrooms. So many of these principals do not have this management skill. When we talk about mayors and state governors, many of them do not focus on the students' learning skills because quality education does not bring up votes in the short term. So the mayor or the state governor prefers to invest in more visible aspects that voters see. Mayors are not held accountable for education. It's very difficult for parents to make sure that their children are learning anything because they themselves, the parents, do not have quality education. And therefore, we see in various aspects of Brazilian educational system, we see that's full of failures. So lack of early childhood development, whether it's because of lack of knowledge on the part of the teacher, which teachers that are being trained through long distance courses. They have no contact with the classroom. So the principal also has a lot of difficulties, and the political leader sometimes is not interested at all in improving the quality of the education. So this is a general overview of education in Brazil, of the situation in Brazil. In view of all this, it's difficult to expect that private financial education have this desirable impact to change the behavior of the young people. So it's all of this is a consequence. Even the programs are beautifully designed, they have a robust structure and all that. The educational system as a whole is failing in promoting these changes. Thank you for your comments. What you said is very clear. I had the experience of being a board member of an NGO focused on financial education, and I realized how all of this is so closely related to the relationship with families, with communities. And when I was working as this board member of the NGO, a lot was said about investments. And Rafaela, recently you launched a program for new investors and bringing this a trend on how language has to be simplified so that young people and anybody can have access to financial education. Would you like to comment on these programs and the initiatives of in terms of financial education? Yes, we are fully aware of this challenge. You know, the fact that the Brazilians do not enter the financial market and not being fully prepared to do so. So this is a challenge, and this is a challenge that we face every day. I think financial education programs are very important. We have to continue insisting in running such programs and taking these programs to school. But we have tried to do, and in practical terms, is take to the client, give the client products where we show him the way, take him by the hand, do the step-by-step process to get the product. Today, I sometimes cannot show an investment product to a client because the client does not understand what this product is all about. So when in the first investment products, for example, a bank deposit certificate was something very basic financial instruments. We offer this CDB with daily liquidity, with that is the interest paid on this is 10% of the basic interest rate. So and the client has difficulties understanding what this financial instrument is all about, and so he does not understand it, and therefore he does not invest in this product. So how do you clarify the characteristics of this product for this client? So, you know, clients don't know how these financial investment instruments work. You know, to begin with, clients have no idea what daily liquidity means. Clients do not understand that they can retrieve this investment any day they want. So we have to create a tool that will help the client understand what the investment is all about. So the idea of the CD product is to use this as a savings tool. but we created a tool where the client chooses to open up a savings account. So this client is investing in this bank deposit certificates, but I simplified the process for him by including a characteristic. It's the piggy bank concept. It's what children do. They put their little coins into the piggy bank. So this product that I'm talking about was launched about 2 years ago, and today have 4 million clients that are investing in this product that we devised for these investors that have no clue of what investments are all about. So we are moving forward in evolving this tool, which is called My Piggy Bank with established objectives.
So digitalization allows that, to create a goal that can be a life goal like retirement, or a short-term one like traveling or saving something, and then you show what they have to do to conclude that. So they will have the big banks depending on the goal, like reforming their home or investing for education, to pay college. So we have many different goals, and they can develop one tool for each goal. So you create a simple way for the client to understand they have a goal, and you gamify that. And today it is attractive because people can see how they evolved, if they are far from or near their goal. And in fact, what we are doing is showing the way to invest in a simple way without creating formulas of interests and so on, because many investors don't even know what an interest rate is. So it's quite complicated for them to make decisions. So when you show only the tool, and we do the work behind it, and we show evolvement over time, it is a way of teaching in practice. So it is quite important. It's a constructive way of doing that, and it's quite successful. So the product is quite successful, and the client is happy, and they learn little by little as they see their savings and they see their involvement. And in terms of investment, the savings account is something important. It's on the longer term, and investing and saving in long term is like dieting and exercising. You need discipline, and not always you see results. Because if you save 100 reais today, so in the end of a month you see 101, so you see no gains, and it's not stimulating when you make the calculus of the interest. But over time you have an important gain accumulated, and the tool will show exactly that to each client. So we want the client to follow this pathway so that they create their self-discipline, and we give this context, but in practice they will test and test little by little and learn as they apply it. Wonderful. Now I would like to talk about the youth. That is a difficult audience. And then, Rogério, Caixa is developing a lot of programs, even in partnership with companies, to talk to them and give financial education to them in line of what the central bank mentioned. So I would like you to talk a little bit more about this audience and the challenges of the program. Well, in fact, we have a series of initiatives, because when we talk about the youth, we talk about different age groups, like children from 5 or 10 years. It's completely different from talking about a high school teenager. So we have partnerships like with Coca-Cola Institute, for example,
principalmente educação financeira.
that provides financial education
A gente tem parceria também, a gente acabou de lançar
to the youth, and we also have a partnership of Roblox that we just launched. I don't know, and my daughter knows. So there is this universe that was launched in Roblox. So we have a series of initiatives that are part of this view that of what Caixa understands as financial education for the youth. And we are the operators of a program from the federal government to teach on saving and dealing with this specific audience, but the idea is that we see the need of customizing the solution so that each group are fully attended. So this aspect of hyper-personalization is not only a trend, but it's becoming a reality with the Gen AI and so on, and a series of other instruments and decision-making and data and so on. So we'll see more and more this hyper-personalization to the youth and how they have an atypical distribution of how they divide. They have tribes, so we need to communicate assertively with the different tribes or niches of youth, like the gamers, the players, and so on and on. We have different audiences with different communications. And besides this youth audience that is part of our knowledge, we have other groups. And I'll also mention that because this is where we work in the point of view of citizenship and sustainability, in the sense of vulnerability. So we are discussing decolonialism, because finances, as we know today, are the Western finances, the way they were brought here since they were built, developed. But if we think about an indigenous population that has a different concept of collaterals or land ownership, so how does the do the guarantees work in this concept? And it's valid for young people and adults. So this point of literacy and education is very important, because it doesn't matter having growing digitalization, make all solutions available, if there is no basic knowledge, as Professor mentioned and Rafael mentioned, if they don't know what finances are and how to access the proper ones to their needs. Okay, Rogério, thank you very much. And for that, we need a favorable environment with a favorable public policies, institutions working in collaboration. So it's a collective and collaborative work. So Tadeu, now I'd like you to talk about CREF and how you, as association, are working with institutions and regulators to promote public policies or initiatives to allow the development of this more favorable environment for education and financial citizenship, and mainly thinking about you getting closer to this credit audience. How do you understand this environment? Well, in CREF, we work strongly in the end, because we work with the base of the pyramid. So I'll give you some examples of CREF actions thinking of citizenship. One of them was the implementation of the positive registry, and we had an important participation on that. And with this measure, we brought to the credit market millions of people that could be included in the credit market, which brought an important point of discussion in terms of financial inclusion and the rising of these people. Another important point that Mansour mentioned in the joint resolution number 8, just for you to have an idea, in CREF, 70% of our associates are small financial institutions and fintechs as well. So CREF had the mandatory role in implementing this resolution, obliging the financial institutions to show their actions with financial education. So it is a resolution that has completed 1 year now, and we could see a good evolution. And in our DNA, we have the credit with awareness, because we need to think of the market in the longer term. So all our actions are associates being sensible to offer the best credit offer to the clients, because we need to think about the future We know the amount of people that we have that are in debt in the financial market, and imagine the potential this market has if we can work with awareness. And talking about awareness, in the current world, and in the business world, we lack a lot of awareness, because awareness changes the world. And if we work with awareness in credit, we can make a lot of changes. I'll give an example that we generally don't talk on our area. Like, we have many institutions with financial education programs and at the same time offers the products that are not the best to the client. Or when the client comes to talk to you, many times you know that the credit can be a nightmare to this client. So you need to be aware and offer the best to the client. That is, the goal of production many times doesn't match this financial awareness and with the goals of financial citizenship. So one of the works of the association is to do that every day. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. We still have some minutes. I have to reduce the time of the last answer to have everyone in the panel. So 2 minutes to each one. We are at FEBRABAN Tech. We need to talk about technology and digital mobility and the use of new technologies. And in your last speech, I want you to talk about the use or not of all opportunities that we have to insert this agenda of financial education in the digital journeys of our clients. So what are the barriers we still need to make an effort to overcome in this sense? So now I'll ignore the order here and we start backwards with Mansour about this topic and your final words, Mansour. Okay, I'll be brief. 2 minutes, okay? I think this digital world offers a lot of opportunities, mainly for you to offer financial education. So 2 points I'd like to emphasize here. First, the importance and relevance of the financial system and the financial institutions in providing financial education to the client. The central bank is there talking about it. We started with a communicate that it was just a communication on the guidelines, and then we work on the financial system, engaging the system to promote financial education. Last year there was Resolution 8. So following this pathway, we can say that the financial institutions are entitled to educating their clients, and the resolution brings something that was mentioned in a generic way, that is the importance of financial education being inserted in the client's journey in their relation with the bank. So it's not having a website with an offer, a course or a brochure. No, it's not that. It's talking to the client whenever the client is purchasing a financial product. So a classic example of inserting financial education is when you are offering the products like a CDB, and you explain to the client the interest rates and so on and on. And the idea of the piggy savings is interesting because this is a playful way of attracting citizens to savings, and we would also like to see related to that some information like you have an instrument of profit there and so on and on and on. So my message is the financial system is responsible, has capillarity, and has contact to the client so they can offer the efficient financial education actions. And it is important that it is within the client's journey, that mingles with the client's life in such a way that don't even realize, and making use of the opportunities that the digital world is giving in having access to information. Thank you very much. Rogério, your final words? Well, if we make use of all opportunities, no, we don't, because we have some barriers that are difficult to overcome. A few years ago, I was part of the program Bolsa Família, and it was difficult to give information and financial education to this audience because they have no access to internet, which is basic. So we need to send them this information via SMS because they would receive that. If we sent a post, they wouldn't receive. So we started with this kind of new until others, like the points of contact. So Mansur was talking about the need of including financial education in the trail and the journey of the client. So there is the need of a more frequent contact. So if we consider the behavior economy theory, if we use the theory of nudes, that would be the points of contact and the insights that we send to the client. This is mandatory so that we have recurrent communication instead of talking to the client whenever they ask for a loan or they want to invest money. So we still don't use all the opportunities we have. Obviously, this is the moment to develop and to learn with digitalization of the processes and so on. But I still believe we still have a lot of opportunities. So, Rogério, Rafaela, there is no doubt digitalization opens the doors to a lot of financial education. I think it's a good example to think that 10 years ago a person wanted to inform on investments and they would say, well, I'll call the bank manager and visit them at the bank agency. So how many people would have this kind of access and have this personal attendance to guide on investments? And with digitalization, you can access millions of people at the same time. So you give access to millions of Brazilians that wouldn't be able to talk to a specific bank manager. So today with AI and so on, you can send a lot of information in a very customized way to each one of the clients' goals so that they can improve their financial organization. So I agree, we are still far from the full potential that digitalization can bring us, but we clearly see many opportunities of keep evolving and improving and contributing to the improvement of the financial lives of Brazilians. Thank you, Rafaela. Tadeu? Okay, I'll be brief as well. I also don't think so. I mean, we are not exploring that as we should. We progressed a lot, but we are still focusing a lot on the easiness and the marketing to sell the product. So I think we still have a lot to do in terms of financial education that today is secondary. Thank you. Nacio, I'll pass you the mic here. Okay, thank you. So I still have 2 minutes and 32 seconds. So I still see a lot of potential, mainly in AI and for education in general and for specifically financial education. Because currently we have very nice platforms, quite well designed for education, like Khan Academy. I mean, they focus specifically on the knowledge of each student. So, for example, does the student know what an interest is? No. So they test on that and they evolve because each person has a different background knowledge. So I think it can be tailor-made. So if you give knowledge to each student, they will each use the AI platform in a different way and they will be guided step by step. And I'm not talking only about school students, but it can be adults without the knowledge. So AI is working not only for financial education, but for education as well, to overcome many of those barriers in such a way that they can use the platforms and gain on knowledge in such a way that was not possible for them to have presentially at school. So we are still not using the full potential, but in the future, AI will be present in everybody's lives. So I thank you for the invitation once again to be here.
Muito obrigada pela participação de todos. Acho que
Thank you all for your participation. I think some important takeaways in this conversation are that we still have a journey ahead of us and we are progressing fast. We have the interest of the financial education institutions to contribute for the journey to improve and become more robust, and that technology should and must and will speed up this process over time, as it is doing with our lives in general. On behalf of FEBRABAN, I'd like to thank you for your participation and thank you following us virtually or here. We'll go on with a very powerful panel now. So I'll pass on the floor to the mediators of the moderators. Thank you very much. Have a nice afternoon.